Did the white man came here to discover the river in this place? Or the sandy, no. So, but we must not perpetually blame the white man, because we have also have access to blame, because we've been charged for a long time. But the white man did a fantastic job ensuring that the people they left behind to run Nigeria, people don't know they are left from their right. And they kept handing over from that generation of failed individuals from one generation to the other until the military took over. And why you know how the military destroyed Nigeria is that the people who used to join the military are members of families who don't do well. So when they went and joined the military, they have grudge against society that they used to be mocked as military men. Some of them were not educated, but they had a gun and they used it to ruin Nigeria. And when some of them retired, they went and changed their uniform, came back again, and continued the ruination of Nigeria. That's where we are today. Leadership is key, and the AAC understands these ramifications, and we have decided that we will not take it, on an incremental step-by-step basis, because this is a country that has been destroyed over the years, and the destruction needs immediate and a fixative process by those of us who are exposed, who have competence and understanding of how to carry out this revolution of the Nigerian state and nation. Because we've gone around the country, gathered information, met with so many people around the country, spoken to them, and understood that without this very radical surgical operation in Nigeria, we'll be back here on this radio show, maybe another 10, 20 years.
Lamenting.
We'll be lamenting. We'll become the family of lamenters. And that should not be our lot, especially considering that we have a lot of people who have left Nigeria, who are back in Nigeria, who are growing up in Nigeria, who are making things happen in their own private lives and also helping other countries to develop. Over 8,000 doctors left Nigeria between 2020 and 2022. I don't know how many have left since
this new year.
over the weekend. And they are going to be doing well in other climes. Nigeria is the only place where they weren't doing well. You'll be surprised that some of them have already settled down, started buying homes, buying cars.
They fixed their lives.
Their lives are doing well. They're already moving their families over there. The system has provided their children great schools. The only thing they have no control over is cold weather, for those of them who are in Europe and America. Yeah, well, you get used to it over time. But why do you think things work for them in those places and it doesn't work for them here?
Yeah.
It's purely a leadership problem. It's a structural problem. So when we say we want to restructure Nigeria, we are not just saying it because we feel like it's the coolest thing to say or it's the sexiest thing to engage in. No, it is because it requires fundamental restructuring. But it's not the restructuring of who controls resources alone. It's a restructuring of how we manage our relationships. That's why we call foundational intervention in our party, and the rest are institutional. The foundational is fix the country so that people can agree to live in this country and determine how they live together in Nigeria and who gets what. And the second aspect is institutional, all this health, good roads, but without the foundational, the institutional cannot work.
Yeah, but if I'm going to take you up on restructuring, constitutional, in recent times the National Assembly has been in some sort of tussle with the State Assembly as regards constitutional amendments and whatnot, and it has been a serious issue. Some states are agreeing for, some are against and whatnot. So let's say you actually get, to become the president, the executive. How do you think you will be able to make all of these things work, or do that transformation without putting the National Assembly in some sort of order?
You see, the constitutional review they are doing is a business. When you see the states disagreeing with federal, it's because they are asking for their own share of the business of constitutional review. It's a multi-billion naira business. In fact, the guy who has been an expert in constitutional review in Nigeria, do you know his name? An expert in the Senate. Ekweremadu, the guy who was trying to sell kidney in London, who is in detention there now. They found him to be in possession of 56 homes. Not in Nigeria, outside Nigeria. Where do you think he got the money from? From the business of reviewing a constitution that doesn't exist. Start reviewing the constitution by making a new constitution. The Nigerian Constitution of 1999 is not a constitution. is a decree of the military that when they were leaving. To the extent that when Olusegun Obasanjo was to be sworn in, they don't have a single copy of the constitution. Go and ask who was the Minister of Information. You can Google it. Because it was something they put together. And then when they were running away. Let the people make their constitution. Right? The American Constitution was made in 1789, if I'm correct. 1789. If they ask you who are the people who sat at the room to frame the Constitution, they didn't even call it to frame the Constitution. You know all their names. If I ask you of our Constitution that was made in 1999 to tell me one person was there when they were making it, one general, you can't know, because they just hired some people to put together very quickly. In fact, at a point, there was a reference to the US in the Nigerian Constitution. They found it and had to go and
the typo was
it wasn't a typo because there was a lot of plagiarization. They went and plagiarized US. They added US, British, whatever they could put there just to make it look like they're serious. That's how bad it is. And you can ask lawyers. I challenge lawyers all the time, Nigerian lawyers. What is wrong with you? I mean, how can you be going to work every day, with faulty instruments? It's not going to work. The Nigerian Constitution is not a legitimate constitution. It didn't go through a referendum. It did not have the input of the people. You don't just promulgate a constitution into existence. You must have the imprimatur of the people. That is why every constitution starts with that sentence. We the people.
But comrade, sorry to cut in. If you are elected as president, you would have to still work with that same constitution, because you will be sworn in with that constitution.
But how are you sure that I don't want to be sworn in with
because that's the constitution of the country. We may say it is faulty.
Anybody would have any choice.
Well, we faulty. We didn't draft it.
I know where you are going.
Yeah. So how do you change that?
That's what I'm saying. That I'm going there to change it. It doesn't mean that it will happen on day one.
Okay.
But on day one, I can make it very clear that this constitution, as far as president of Nigeria, is something we have to deal with right away. And I don't see anybody in Nigeria who would disagree with creating a new constitution that can accommodate all our differences and similarities. So there's no problem with that. The South African apartheid ended without a black constitution. I mean, a constitution that included blacks. So Mandela was sworn in with more or less an apartheid constitution. But they went, I think they had an interim constitution before it was sworn in. But they still went and did a real constitution that accommodated a lot of things. If they had said, well, I can't be sworn in with the constitution, how would they be able to demolish the constitution? You can stand on a podium to get a prize.
But the murky waters of
yes.
But are you ready to swim the murky waters of legislative maneuvering as we have it?
What have I done my entire life? It's shaking the system to its roots. That's what I've done since I was as a teenager. So I'm not going to fight them, but I'll tell them the people sent you here, and this is what they want. So we slug it out until we get. But I don't think that there's anybody on a serious note, whether you are a senator or a House of Rep member, who disagrees with the fact that Nigeria needs to be restructured. But my own prescription as the best restructuring you can do is to have a document called the Constitution that accommodates people who want state police, people who want to control their resources, people who want other kinds of things. Some people just want a referendum to be included in the Constitution. In the Southeast, as much as they are saying they want to leave Nigeria, I've spoken with them, I know their leaders. They said, look, if there's a referendum clause in the Constitution that says to us, just like they have in the UK, that we can leave this union if the marriage is bad, we are fine. We'll stay. So that clause is just like a clause that allows for separation before divorce. It's like if you're married and you're having issues with if you have irreconcilable differences, you can start by leaving the bedroom first, living in separate bedrooms, and then later you can go stay out somewhere else before you go to court and dissolve the marriage. But I believe that a lot of people who are in Nigeria today will stay in Nigeria if Nigeria is a just society and they find accommodation within the concept of Nigeria. That is why I'm still doing what I'm doing. I believe in a united Nigeria, and I believe in a united Africa. My goal is Africa, as a matter of fact, not Nigeria alone.
All right. Okay. You've said a lot about Nigeria, where we used to be, where we are right now, and projections as regards if you eventually emerge as the president. But I want to talk about you personally.
Yes.
You made mention of the fact that right from your teenage years, it's been about shaking the government, speaking truth to power, asking the right questions. But for about 3 years, that opportunity, that leverage, that democratic right was literally taken away from you when you were given that intercity ban before the Court of Appeal eventually upturned it early this year. I've seen what you've done. I've seen you at several points, whether as a student union government president of University of Lagos, as an activist, as a media entrepreneur with Sahara reporters and all of that. When that incident happened, that circle in your life where you were restricted from leaving Abuja, I'm not even talking about seeing your family outside of the country, you couldn't even move outside a particular city. In the spirit of democracy, which you've always stood for, what was that period like around you?
It wasn't different, considering that when I was younger, I was restricted by poverty to a village. So it's still restriction. When I became older, I was restricted from completing university at the University of Lagos for 2 years because I participated in protests. That's the restriction too. So when I left Nigeria, I had no restriction except maybe family kind of restriction, because if you have family, you are forced to stay at home sometimes. But it was very productive for me because of lack of restriction. It was that opportunity and freedom of both thoughts and physical movement and right of association that helped me to think through setting up Sahara Reporters and made it become a global brand. And it was what I was saying earlier about those who have gone out, who are doing well. The day I started coming back home to replicate the same thing in Nigeria, they were waiting for me. It was at the Ikeja here. One young guy who was an APC guy, his name is Lekon Patodu. He was waiting for me at the gate of the place I rented, and I was fixing it. He knows the place, and attacked me physically. I was like shocked, that I wrote a story about him, or Sahara published a story. Within 5-10 minutes, the police had arrived, as if they were standing around. In another 30 minutes, I was in front of the police commissioner. I forgot his name now. He's retired, and he was telling me that I committed an offense of murder. And I said, or attempted murder. I said, what is the attempted murder here? He said, I wrote a story about this young man, and they have investigated, and they think it could kill him. And he said, they took me to Panti. They took me in a vehicle and used an empty vehicle to carry the petition to Panti. I got to Panti, I saw Frank Umba, who was later a police PPR. Frank Umba had left University of Lagos for 10 years before he even entered university. Frank Umba saw me and he couldn't believe it. He said, what did you do? I said, ask it. He said, okay, wait. And then the vehicle came in with a siren and they gave him a petition. I'm just giving you this to let you know how the system works. So I've undergone all kinds of restriction in life, both physical, mental, because that's the way the state works, is to make sure that you don't feel free, even when you are physically moving around. So, but to go to your question, so I was restricted to Abuja, but the way I solved those kinds of restriction was to think about the life of people who are restricted and trapped in the prison called Nigeria. You understand? I mean, I met Dasuki in detention. He had been there for, at that point, maybe almost 5 years before he was released. That's restriction. I was detained for 5 months. If I was still in prison, would you still be asking? Prison, I mean, being detained in Abuja is better than being detained in a room at the DSS headquarters where you don't know day from night. You get my point? Where they give you just 1 hour. I was in solitary confinement for almost 4 months until later on I pleaded with them to bring the young guy who they claim was my co-conspirator. One guy that I barely know, to overthrow the government. So we were staying together, and then we went to court. They granted us bail. I told the guy to leave the car when they came and invaded the courtroom and abducted me in front of a judge. I saw the shoe of the judge flying, her wig, like just flying in the air. I've never seen that before, that security agents will go abduct somebody in front of a judge. But I'm just giving you this background to say, look, that's nothing compared to what our people are going through in terms of governmental and non-governmental restrictions. Poverty is a form of restriction too. Hunger is a form of restriction. Lack of access to good quality education is a form of restriction, because they don't allow you to have that mental development and physical development that you deserve as a human being. That is where the point about human dignity comes into all this question. Now, what makes you a human being is not your nationality. It is what you get, the respect you get in terms of social, economic, cultural, and all kinds of great freedoms that you get. That makes you a human being. Not your last name or your first name, or whether you are Yoruba or Hausa or Igbo. Those might play some roles in how you look at yourself. But what is biggest deal for me is that all these restrictions mean nothing if I can achieve some form of opportunity for people to get liberated. That's why our manifesto is about total liberation. When I got into detention, the guys who were interrogating me didn't know who I was very much. They were born after I started activism, the DSS guys. So I was the one who was telling them what Nigeria used to look like in our own time. So there were the guys in there. When they first came in, hey, Mr. Sowore, I said, you guys, you'll be tired. Can you write your statement? I said, no, I don't write statement anymore. I said, when did you stop writing statement? I said, 1992. I said, wow, I wasn't born at that time. That was the last time I agreed to write statement in a police station, and because I was arrested during the Babangida Moscow protest that we did, and they beat the heebie-jeebies out of me. Police asked, DSS asked me, write statement. I'll finish writing the statement, they'll tear it. I was interrogated for 8 hours and then detained at the place they call Inter Center. It's an interrogation center. It's at the back of, it's in front of Ikoyi Cemetery. It's tucked inside somewhere. They're still there. In front of it doesn't look like a government building because there are mechanics there, and I think there are DSS people acting like mechanics, but they don't repair anything. It's beside the passport office. Yes. I was one of the few, I think I was the youngest person to have been detained there at that time. So I've seen through all these things. But the guys who were DSS people who came to interview, there were 3 of them. One of them left in anger. He couldn't understand what I was telling him. And I said, you guys call yourself intelligence officers. You are not intelligent, because if you are intelligent, you understand that the nation, that your country, is bigger than the president. You are just a protective unit of the presidential office. So that was how we couldn't resolve the issue of my being charged with treason, because the guys who were interrogating me did not even understand the meaning of treason or treasonable felony. When they went to court, they drafted charges that the judge did not understand. They say, Sowore engaged in money laundering. The judge asked them, how much? Where? They didn't know.
Because I actually want to specifics. I'm sure the Sowore story is a story that we can have for the next 24 hours. The struggle through life, activism, and all of that. And very relatable too. So, yes. But because Nigerians will be more interested in, yes, they like your story, but there are things that affect them now.
Yes.
And one thing I said it this morning in one of our shows that we're not paying attention to is the issue of the economy.
Yes.
Of course, one of the frontline presidential candidates, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, had something in the news today that
reiterating the fact that
he's going to remove subsidy, and he doesn't mind if people protest from now till the kingdom come. He will remove the subsidy.
Did he say that?
Yes.
I thought people said they don't understand when he talks.
Well, of course,
he said this one. We heard.
We heard. We understand. But a very serious comrade. I'm looking at the issue of subsidy, and if we are to go by what Ipman is saying, that look, if you remove subsidy today without fixing refineries, without having local production of petroleum, Nigerians should be ready to buy a liter of fuel for as high as 500 naira per liter, even more, or 1,000, depending on what forex do to us at that time. So we need to ask you, what do you think about the oil sector?
The oil sector
and the issue of subsidy.
The oil sector is a criminal sector in Nigeria, and I will address subsidy by saying everybody agrees on one thing, that subsidy is fraud in Nigeria. But what most of them don't talk about is how to fix the problem. Their own solution to the problem is to remove subsidy. It is not the solution. It's like parking a trailer, or if you are driving a trailer uphill, right, and you haven't been able to fix it. It breaks down, and you put shock in it, those stoppers on the tire, and you haven't fixed your trailer, right? and plenty of people are at the back of the train. Made are also subsidies. You subsidize the transportation sector. But my own suggestion is that beyond that, you first of all must fix your 4 refineries. It makes no sense on earth that you have somebody build a new refinery in Lagos that has the biggest capacity in Africa, according to them, and you cannot fix your own refinery.
As a federal government,
you go and buy shares.
$2.something billion
shares in the private sector, in the private refinery. You invest in it, but you cannot fix your refineries that requires maybe $2.5 billion or $3 billion. Let's say it's $4 billion.
Even $10 billion.
Yes. At least the 4 refineries will do better than the biggest one that you have just invested. Stupidity. But where would you find it except with politicians? So I have given you the analogy. People say it because it is popular to say it for their foreign friends who see Nigeria as a dumping ground for ideas and fake products. That's why you hear them saying we'll remove subsidy. How do you remove subsidy for 200 million people and you don't expect them to either die or they will resist it? This is where wasting your time. Let him say that somebody that has not recovered from NSAS that affected one toll gate that he's interested in is saying that he doesn't care about protest. He doesn't know what he's saying. You understand? Tinubu doesn't know what he's saying. But today is not about him. It's about when we have the time for him. That's why we asked him to come out.
So what would you do about subsidy, the oil sector, the rot, the corruption?
I will nationalize the NNPC.
Okay.
The NNPC is a cesspool of corruption. You cannot privatize corruption and get any benefit from it. It's the Nigerian people's property. The same people who are privatizing NNPC are Nigerians. Most of them, in fact, the board of the NNPC were former politicians. So if they run down Nigeria, they will still run down the NNPC. Most of them, a lot of politicians today were private sector people who ran down their companies. But then you then sell the public money to them and you expect them to run it. It's not going to work. Look at what they did with the power sector. They sold the power sectors at giveaway prices. They sold plants that they built at $700 million to people for $2 million. But go and ask. The same federal government has to provide letter of credit to the same companies.
Continue to support
them. They have to give them grants. They have to keep giving them all kinds of
people that already sold.
Yes, cheap. You sold something cheap to somebody. And it's just like somebody that sells an iPhone to you for 2,000, and you keep going back to the person, keep going back to the person to buy you recharge card. Why is it not?
Or even charger?
Yes, exactly. Charger. Every time you have a problem, is the one you take it. Let's take your breaks. You go back to him. Why not you just keep his thing?
Let's talk about the 2023 general election. Just about 52 days away, we'll have the presidential and the National Assembly election. As against what we had in 2019, we had about 73 political parties, and in that particular contest, you came 10th, I think, with about a little over 30,000 votes and all of that. But okay.
I don't even know which number it was.
Okay, we had 33,953. But what I'm trying to say is this. What is going to be different this time around? A lot of people had thought that 2015 could be that period where we move into that next space, but 7.5 years down the line, it's crazy. If you look at the issues in 2022, the unfortunate incident in Owo, the Kaduna train attack, you just look at it over and over again. It looks like it's from one particular problem. In fact, it was reported that for the Kaduna Abuja train attack, there are about 6 billion naira exchange hands in ransom.
Probably more.
So going forward, why do you think we have this need for the people to want to get involved? INEC said almost 100 million people have registered for their PVCs now. There's huge commitment. I've seen how people have, followed you also. What do you think is bringing up all of this to the table, and why is 2023 election going to be different for everyone?
I will address my own election in 2019 first. There was no election in 2019. It was a selection of the candidates that had the structures within INEC and the military. They all connived together and rigged that election for Buhari. And that's the reason why I said I don't believe in the election. And the natural question you ask me is that why would you believe in this one?
Now, yeah.
Part of the revolutionary endeavor is to also continue to throw contradictions of
into the
narrative, so that at the point it will be clear to the people that they can't continue to be complacent. That's why this time around we are using the tagline, we can't continue like this, because everybody has reached their theta end. And I think that the red button will be pushed, hopefully, in this 2023. It will be very clear to people. INEC is throwing out numbers. We go to meetings with INEC, because I'm also a political leader, founder of the party. And when you ask INEC how many people are in possession of voters card, they will never tell you. They will tell you how many people are registered, but they won't tell you. It's like the biggest secret. You guys are journalists. Ask them in INEC, because if you know number of people who have voters card, you will be disappointed. There are not as many as registered voters, and INEC just generally did what they do. They create bottlenecks so that people cannot get their. Because if you have a job, the likelihood that you go and wait to collect your PVC
is very low.
And if you don't believe that the numbers will count, the likelihood that you go and risk your life on election day is also very low. So you have a place in Lagos now. The people who are running Lagos, they live in Lekki, Aja, and all those swanky areas, but they don't campaign in those areas. Why? Because the people there, you can't use Ankara to make them vote for you. They will drive all the way to Yaropaja, all those poor areas, and that's why they love to keep those areas poor, because the votes come from there. It's not the votes, but that's where the numbers come from. Numbers don't mean votes. Yes, so that's what they did to us. When they cooked up the numbers, I won in all the areas around me where I voted. When the election passed through their processes, they recorded 0 for me in areas that I knew I won. And when they saw that I was calling for a revolution and that the election results had not been finally litigated at the Supreme Court, that was why I was arrested in July, because they knew that it was opening people's eyes up. And when I just said, tell you, this is a period of revolutionary endeavor for us. We are not going to get there by voting alone. And don't let me lie to you, this country will have to experience a revolution before we will get it right. You heard me right, and I'm saying it on your station, but don't be afraid. I'm going to do the wrong. Who will get the consequences? They know me.
Maybe off radio, I'll ask you to define what you mean by that revolution. But because this is radio, I'd like to ask you about this trending issue.
Yes.
The former president, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo.
Yes.
Just wrote a letter.
Took that from me. But I just saw a headline now.
Okay.
I just saw a headline now, so
okay. But honestly, that letter has been, of course, a lot of people are talking, and it would be nice to get your own view about what he said. Of course, just a little part of that letter endorsed the candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi. And what the former president specifically was that, hey, this is a guy that I've mentored, is a mentee, and that
he has an edge.
That he has an edge, and that is different. That though he's not a saint, but he's different from the others representing themselves forward. Although he also did a scorecard on the on the performance of the current president and all of that. But what would you say to the former president, and then to everybody that believes that Obi is different from others, he's a new breed, he's not part of the old order? Of course, you also find a lot of his supporters say, "Oh, he's not a saint," but
you ask him Sowore to endorse me.
I want his opinion on. I just want his opinion on.
Or looking at the political value or relevance.
Just everything that has happened. What would you say to that?
This is the first time I'm calm listening to this kind of question.
Okay, this is the first time. Well, maybe our studio is cozy enough to make you calm.
The ambience here is fantastic, by the way.
Thank you.
But you see, look at Obasanjo historically. He has never supported anything that will make Nigeria work. In 1979, Nigeria had the opportunity to have elected one of the best presidents in its history, Obafemi Awolowo.
Chief Obafemi Awolowo.
What did Obasanjo do? He went against him. They even went and did a calculation they called 12 to 3rd to make sure that his numbers never tallied. That's number one. In 1993, Obasanjo went a notch higher. We voted for Abiola. in this country. When I say we, I didn't vote because I wasn't interested. And he won the election. Obasanjo and Babangida and the others met secretly. That Obasanjo, Abiola is not the Messiah Nigeria needed. They frustrated that election. But Nemesis caught up with him, Okama. He was arrested, detained, and tried for treason and sentenced. I don't know if he was sentenced to death, either death or life. Whichever one he was sentenced for was as bad as death. What happened? He went to prison. They decided that he should be freed, even though he had been convicted before Abiola, who was not convicted. They made the arrangement, brought him to power. What did Obasanjo do for 8 years? He brought some of the worst criminals into this country. He engaged in massacre, Zaki Biam, OD. He manipulated the process and then wanted to do a third term. I will end it here so that it doesn't take it. We're looking at time. It's like Obasanjo has never in the history of this country taken a decision in the interest of Nigeria. Never. And that is why his biggest problem in life is to be bigger than Obafemi Awolowo. But he keeps getting stunted and he shrinks every time he takes a decision. So he has done it again by choosing somebody he knows. Obasanjo one time chose a dead person to be president of Nigeria and called him on the phone asking me if he's dead. And the man died. That was Musa Yar'Adua. So he knew that Obi is not going to take Nigeria anywhere. Just as he knew that Umar Yar'Adua would not take Nigeria anywhere. Just as he knew that Jonathan would not take Nigeria anywhere. But he supported them anyway. He supported Buhari too in 2015. So you tell me, if Obasanjo ever did anything in the interest of Nigeria, he has never done it before. It's the reason why I can never visit him. I can never visit Babangida or any of these former head of states, whether military or civilian. Never. Because what Fela said, did you remember the song Fela said? He said, the same old politicians will rule Nigeria before. The same old politicians will rule Nigeria before. Obasanjo got them, brought them together. Because if you don't finish, you don't finish, you don't finish. That was Fela. It's the same old politicians who have ruled Nigeria before that he brought back again. Obi was governor of a state for 8 years. I can go to my village and do Christmas. Obi cannot go to his own and do Christmas. He's living in Lagos. Because Lagos, it's safer for him. But it's not safe for anybody anyway. But it's safer than the state he governed. So, but they like lies. There's all this hype, that Obi is this, and it's all hype. They package people. They package fraud and they impose it on them. And unfortunately, and I'll say this because I'm a member of the media too, the press is complicit in it. You are complicit in hyping rubbish for Nigerians. There was a time that Babangida wanted to come back now. The media people were supporting him. It was those of us in the critical media that said no, Babangida cannot come back. And that's how Babangida did not succeed in recontesting during this dispensation that we are in today. So I have analyzed it to you so that you won't waste your time. At any rate, Obasanjo has never won his polling unit before. Never. He can't even win in exactly. So why it has no political relevance. He writes all these letters to get attention to himself, and as soon as he gets the attention, he'll disappear.
All right.
Yes.
Let's open up the phone line because I know for a fact that the last phrase that I just put together now is going to generate a lot of buzz.
What is it? Remind me so that
so that when they come for what say? It's just as regards the hype as around the Labour Party presidential candidate, but then
the Labour Party is the refugee camp for internally displaced politicians.
It's okay, comrade. Surely, thank you very much. 09136000410. 09136000410. That's the number to call. You have just a minute, okay? Just 1 minute, and share what you have.
Clean too.
Very important. Do ensure to keep it clean. Although I know that he's capable, but then please keep it clean. Would appreciate that. Hello, good morning.
Now, thank you, Sandra.
Now, good afternoon.
Okay. Afternoon. Yes, this is Ufoma from Mangodo.
Okay.
Yes. I just want to ask your guest here. I love your all his analysis. But one question I will ask you. Yes, let me ask you. You are from what state?
From Ondo State.
Okay, from Ondo State. Now, when you mentioned that you'll be coming to your station this morning, one thing that came into my mind that I will ask you, Paravation, he did not win this coming election. I will ask you to go for Senate, to properly rebuild himself. Because looking at it, the people in the front of him, people are ready to vote for them. But I did not hear much campaign concern in those elections. Paravation, he did not win this election. I will plead with you, go for Senate, rebuild the vision. The Bible says the vision is for appointment time. Though he will tarry, but at the end of the day, he will speak of himself.
In this 2023 election or in another one?
No, yes, if he did not win this one, he should go for Senate.
All right. Let's take 3 questions and then we'll respond.
I don't think that's a question. I think it was just
a comment.
It was a comment. All right. Hello. Ooh. I think you put us on hold. Hello. Good afternoon.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Yes. Good afternoon.
This is Michael.
Okay, Michael. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from GRA.
All right. Please go ahead.
Good morning to your crew there. Mr. Sowore, good morning, sir.
Good morning and happy new year, my brother.
Yes, sir. The same thing to you. God bless you, sir.
Thank you.
Well, I like your zeal. I like everything that you said. But the problem of Nigeria is that, like you have said it all. They may not allow somebody like you to get to that place. And because of the situation of Nigeria, because of the situation in Nigeria, people are so blinded in the sense that they will give somebody 2,000 naira, 3,000 naira to buy his vote or her vote. That is the country that we are. Like somebody in Lagos here now, look at how people are following him. He's sharing Marwa, sharing other things. Although that is not my issue. But the issue of Baba Passenger that you have mentioned, when Obasanjo brought late President Yaradua, yes, the Obasanjo may be bad in some ways, but at the same time, it was Yaradua Yaradua was the first president to reduce fuel price when Obasanjo increased it to 100 naira. Yaradua reduced it back to 60
Do you have
or something like that.
Do you have a question? Do you have a question? Because
yes, the question is that, to me, I don't believe in Nigerian politicians. I'm sorry to.
Okay, thank you. Hello, good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon.
I keep calling from Aja.
Okay.
I want to greet my eminent Sowore. That's our student union leader when I was at Unilag. Incidentally, I was one part of the program, the protest that was organized to address issues at that year. Good afternoon, sir.
Happy New Year, my brother. Good afternoon. I think we're still, yes, it's afternoon. Yes.
But my issue is now, when the issue of that protest went and we left, we were not sure about the toxic that we had that was injected into the system. And I think that was what really brought maybe some what do I call it now, sympathy or whatever.
Alright.
On your own personal part. But now, no, wait.
So what's the question?
No,
because of time.
For we that were left behind, we have to suffer the brunt. I'm telling you the truth. So, but we.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Mr. Michael.
Okay.
Yeah, our future president. Happy New Year to you, sir.
Happy New Year, sir. Thank you so much for joining us.
Please, sir, I have a question to ask you.
Go ahead.
Is it going to be very difficult for you to drop your ambition and support Labour Party?
Yes.
Please, your question, sir. Please, give me offended.
Yes, answered you.
He said he cannot.
Wait.
I was
hoping he would do a follow-up.
It was just straight about
And I asked my follow-up. I was going to think he was going to ask a follow-up to that. You know, he answered it straight up. He said, yes, that it's going to be difficult for him to.
He answered the former question. If he would go to the Senate, yeah, he said if he doesn't win, will you be thinking
will you be interested in going to the Senate?
No, I don't. I get the questions all the time. I've answered it too many times already.
Okay.
But maybe sometimes it's good to for analogy to our people that it's just like you have a child and he gets double promotion from maybe class 4 to go 6. To secondary school.
Okay.
Would you say because a neighbor's son who has not been given promotion is taller and better looking, you ask your child not to make progress? You won't, right? So, and that's how I see this. But in terms of the most important question about leadership, it's about competence, it's about records, it's about history, it's about vision. And when we talk about vision, like I've always said, vision is not about the thickness of the lenses on your glass.
You have the big glass and not see anything.
So it's just like he was saying, those who are ahead of you, they seem to, but who is ahead of me that is talking about the issues? No.
Right.
The candidates are described as the frontliners. They don't even talk to the media. They don't explain anything to anybody. They just say to you, we'll see you on election day with your 2,000 naira.
All right. Hello, good afternoon.
Hello?
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Can I be on the show?
Yes, you're live on the radio.
Oh, okay. Happy New Year, Mr. Sowore.
Happy New Year to you.
Your name, sir?
Good to hear from you. My name is Omoyele, calling from Lagos.
Okay, from Festac. Okay.
Alright. No question. I just want to make Mr. Sowore know that some of us, we love him so much. We are proud of you, everything you are doing.
Okay.
I will keep voting for you till you win. Because we believe in everything you do. Please keep up. Don't mind all naysayers. We really support you. God bless you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Okwempo. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon,
Good afternoon, Mr. Damola.
Good afternoon. Omoyele Sowore. Good afternoon, sir.
Happy New Year to you and good afternoon.
Thank you very much, sir.
For joining.
Thank you, sir. I've listened to you very well. Honestly, you're my hero. I want to make an appeal and I want to make a request. The thing is just that I want you to please, whatever happens next year, don't give up on this country. I've been following you for many years, honestly.
We're in 2023 already. We're in 2023 already.
Yeah, already. What happened in this election, honestly?
Not next year.
In fact, please, thank you very much, Alexandra. What happened this year in election, please, please don't give up on this country. Don't give up. And what I want to put before you just this. How will you deal with these unrepentant conquerors? Many Nigerians are blind, I must tell you. Many Nigerians, we are very blind. We don't see the truth. But how will you play? How will you go with those unrepentant conquerors? We are in the hands of ghosts and spirits. Honestly, I must say that I'm clear. How will you deliver this country?
All right, thank you, Mr. Damola.
Thank you very much.
Unrepentant conquerors.
Ghosts and spirits. Yeah?
I don't know the unrepentant conquerors. Hello, good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Sandra and Fuad and the guest there, Mr. Sowore.
Good afternoon. Happy New Year to you, sir.
Happy New Year to you, sir.
Yeah, my name is DK. I am calling from Ojo in Lagos here.
Welcome, sir.
I have been listening passionately to your interview and talks here. But the question I want to ask, because it's question time, is not listening again. The question I want to ask is that the administration or governance of a country needs experience, tested experience, whether from a local government or to a state or even to senatorial or a representative experience. So at least you start from somewhere. I have not seen you in any of these places.
Okay.
So how can we now say, okay, let us bank on you because you have prerequisite experience? Explain that to somebody like us. All the other contestants we are talking about, the three foremost contestants, have governed somewhere. So they have a basis to assess them.
Right.
Where do I assess you now? I want to assess you now. Let me understand. But we are to start assessing you.
That's a good one. Thank you.
All right. DK.
Thank you, DK. What you are asking of me is to explain to you that because I have never been an armed robber found in a bank, robbing a bank, I can't be trusted. You're saying that, and I don't have such experience. You're saying that those who have destroyed this country through leadership, their kind of leadership or rulership, their experience, I don't know how to defend that. I don't see that as an experience. It's just like you buy a bunch of cars and somebody comes to you and say, I'm an experienced driver. I used to drive with Julius Berger. He took out your car, crashed the car. You hire another one, he crashes your new car. You hire another one, he crashes your new car. Even though they gave you a CV that's long enough to show that you saw their driver's license that shows that they have been driving. Would you keep hiring the same set of experienced drivers? Definitely not. Experience in my own situation is based on my life experiences as an engagement with the development of the Nigerian nation, which has spanned 30 years. 30 years. And I dare say to you that apart from Atiku, who ran for the primaries of SDP in 1992, there's nobody who can boast of the kind of experience with political engagement in Nigeria as me. And when Atiku lost in that primaries, I won the presidency of the Student Union of the University of Lagos. And you heard people talking about it on radio today, that I was their Student Union president, and I did my best during my time. Do you know how old I was in 1992? I was 21 years old. The democracy we are enjoying today, we all are enjoying today. What experience brought it about is the experience of the student leaders and pro-democracy leaders in this country that brought democracy. If we didn't fight, if we almost didn't lose our lives and spend time in jail, you will not have a 1999 democracy in Nigeria. I'm an experienced fighter. Yesterday we went to my village to swim in the lake, and some people on Facebook were live streaming it. They were asking me, Sowore, you didn't wear life jacket? I said, how can you be born in Ondo State? Where I come from,
the riverine part of the state.
my village people will be disappointed with me if they see me with a life jacket. But that's not the issue. My response is that we are the life jackets of the nation. You can cling to us if you are drowning, and we'll save you. If your child is killed today, we'll cry about it until you get justice. If you're killed by police, all right. If your salary is not paid, the experienced politicians are the ones who don't pay salaries. The inexperienced politicians like us are the ones who make you get your salary paid. The experienced politicians are the ones who close down your schools. The inexperienced politicians like us are the ones who keep the schools open. The experienced politicians are the ones who embezzle funds meant for development. The inexperienced Sowore is the one who makes sure that they what they are swallowing, they vomit it. What experience are you looking for again? I have scars to show all over my body as an experienced fighter. It is the same way you said Fela had no experience. Now we are playing his music, even in church. Yes.
So to Damilola from Malaba, we said, how do you want to deal with your unrepentant conquerors? Although he didn't define what he.
That's unrepentant conquerors.
I guess you know what he's trying to say.
I understand what he's saying. But you know, when people go into the spiritual realm too, you know, it's how overwhelmed they are about Nigerians. But my simple answer to Damilola is that you know me now. I've always been dealing with principalities since I was in my teenage years. Because most people don't know, like I was saying with the DSS guys who interrogated, they were born after 1992. They didn't know who I was. Most people also didn't know that I was around and fought against Babangida, one of the biggest thieves in this country. I was around and fought against Abacha until he died. It's on record. You have newspapers that carry these stories. I was around and drove away Abdul Salami. I was around and fought against Obasanjo's third hand. I was around and I was the one who fought to reveal and unveil Yar'Adua's cabal's moves to make it impossible for Jonathan to become president. Jonathan became president. The little inexperienced me did that for this country. But the only experience I don't have is that I'm not an experienced murderer or an experienced thief. And Nigerians love their thieves.
Okay.
All right, 09136000410. This is just an unabridged version of Ballot 23. We have our guest in the studio, the presidential candidate of the Africa Action Congress, in person of Omoyele Sowore, and it's been quite an interesting conversation thus far. So let's get your thoughts. 09136000410. Hello. Please turn down. Hello. Hello.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Sam.
Okay, Sam.
I'm calling from Germany.
Germany, okay.
Okay.
Okay, so my own question goes to the media parts. Like, why do we like to hide frauds in Nigeria? We hide what is his name? In 2001, Obasanjo against them. Fast forward 2019, we hide numbers doing the same thing. How can we be doing the same thing and we are expecting different results? It's not going to happen. Look, I'm in this country for a very long time. You cannot go like to a German one time, just one time, you are gone. I'm telling you. But they keep doing this same thing over and over again. For how long? Omoyele Sowore cannot do it alone. I'm telling you. The media house, we have to contribute, we have to do it together. Because if you're always pushing it to
Okay, thank you.
Question. Thank you.
That's why we have him here. Is to answer him that look, we give opportunity to everybody.
No, but
you know, so when they say hyper, sometimes
it's from the point of conscience.
Okay.
You know, because the media is so important and so powerful that the media has caused wars. And they have also ended wars. The media is very powerful. That is why they call them the
fortress of the realm.
But now, the media has become the fifth columnist in this country. And I say it because, like I introduced myself earlier, I'm a member of the media by accident. I didn't go to no journalism school. I just started a media concern. And I remember in I think it was 2008 or so, the UBA had a meeting of all the media leaders in this country, entrepreneurs and practitioners. And I came in, it was the day Sanusi was removed as central bank also. So I told them, I said, what are you doing here? The biggest news in the country is happening at the airport. We are all having seminar. I went to the airport to cover his arrival and how the DSS was collecting his passport. I covered it. Breaking story. All the media people who were in UBA discussing copied my story word for word the next day. But they could have gone into the place. But that's not the point I wanted to make. So I looked at them, I said, all of you are practicing old journalism. You know, I asked for this one, you know, the other person, I'm still pursuing him. But you all know that if you have a sensitive story, the moment you have your story, you have your documents, and you ask the person who is affected, the story is never going to get done. You know. Because he will call your guy, or he will try to bribe you, he will threaten you, I'm going to kill you. So sometimes you have to use your judgment to make sure that the story gets out there, it doesn't get killed. And as a result, it may not meet the journalism standard that you were taught in the university. They say, no, that's not how we do journalism. And I told them, I said, the journalists that you are used to will also go extinct very soon. As a matter of fact, most of you, if you're not careful, will lose your job. And you may not be able to find a job with Linda Ikeji. They all got upset. They said, is Linda Ikeji practicing journalism? Why should I say, listen, the thing is that you are expecting the journalism that you know to keep evolving, but you are not evolving with it. All of you that are printing newspapers in this country today, all the circulation of newspaper in Nigeria, the print is not up to 5,000. I'm not exaggerating.
No.
Yes.
That's the fact.
But I'm sure they'll argue with you on that.
Punch newspaper used to circulate over 600,000 newspapers per day.
All right.
But the problem is that the truth today is that the editor and the owner of the newspaper don't read their newspaper anymore because of the digital device. So the news I want to publish tomorrow is already here with us.
At this time now we have actually run out of time. It's a pleasure to have you with us here in the studio. Thank you very much, Comrade Omoyele Sowore, presidential candidate of African Action Congress. Thank you for being here this morning. I hope with these few points of yours that our listeners have been able to take one or two things away from what you have to offer the country. That's one thing that I always advocate for is people can make their choice, but they need to make an informed choice. If they don't have the right information, then how do they make the right choice for all of us?
But there's a lot of people that have right information but they refuse to do the right thing. And those are the people that I'm more interested in.
Want to liberate from the darkness of misinformation.
They know darkness and light, but they will hide in darkness and try to take out light. Those are the people I'm interested in.
Alright, 98.3 Mainland FM. Join us tomorrow as we have a Accord gubernatorial candidate, Lagos State, joining us on ballot 23 in the studio by 4 p.m. Okay, that's another time. That's
Mr. Akim Dixon.
Mr. Akim Dixon, yes, that's another time to talk about governance and contemporary issues in Nigeria. Stay with us.